Brad, I'm going to do a very, very quick introduction, if I might, and it's right off of public information on LinkedIn. We haven't spoken about what I should say and what I shouldn't say, but you've been at Turner for a really long time, and I commend you on that, knowing how often in your industry people jump diagonally. You've gone from being a senior project manager to a project executive to now operations manager. Your background, though, like all of the students on the call, is in civil engineering. You received your degree in civil engineering from the University of Virginia, I see, in 1999. Everyone on the call except me, I'm a recovering architect, is by training a civil engineer. The student fellows are in the construction management and construction engineering and management concentration within civil engineering department at the Engineering School of Columbia. And all of us, including Professor Peñamora, with whom I work, are part of something called the Center for Buildings, Infrastructure, and Public Space. So we tried to talk about the connections between things, looking at all of the projects that your firm, that Turner has done in Chicago and obviously worldwide. I think puts you in that same role as Woody, as a kind of a kickoff person for, immersion from afar, I've been calling it, to try to understand Chicago from a distance, much different than we would have been able to do if we were both in your office or on one or more of the construction sites. So, by means of introduction, I just wanted to say thank you and turn it over to you. If you want to share your screen with a video, with a PowerPoint, that's great. But Taniowski, do you have a few other?
No, thank you, Brad, for joining us. I know that it's a busy schedule, so we really appreciate it. I know that the students will learn. We have had a partnership with Turner for a long, long time. When I started in MIT in the Cambridge, Boston area, I worked very closely with Turner. And then when I went to Chicago, actually to Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, I work closely with your office in Chicago, and now here we work closely with Turner in New York, and Peter Devron is in the board of our center. So, so thank you for making time and to be with us, and looking forward to hearing what you would like to share with the students and us. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you all. And Rick, I won't hold the architecture background over your head for this. So, and it's interesting too that, you mentioned MIT, Columbia, University of Illinois, Champaign. Last week I was in a presentation at the University of Chicago where we're competing for basically a quantum physics lab building, right? And I had one of my peers with Turner from Boston out here because he had led the work at MIT Nano out there, and then we have I had people on the team from Champaign because we continue to do work for University of Illinois. So yeah, it's a small world when it all comes together. So indeed. I do have something that I put together today. I'll share it in just a second. And really, it's a list of pictures and some relevant projects that are currently either in pre-construction or construction. Rick, I find that's a good way to spur conversation, see what's out there. And so I'll kind of go through those, maybe with the emphasis on what the projects are and how they tie back to what we're doing in the community, how construction impacts the community and the greater society overall, if that sounds good.
Fine. I think I've given you permission to share screen. If not, I'll make you the host and, see here for the duration, but see if it's.
Yeah, and so everybody knows, hopefully the noise is at a minimum, but I'm out at a project site today. So I've commandeered someone's office. It says host disabled, participant screen sharing.
Host is enabled or disabled?
Disabled.
Okay, I'm gonna make you the host, and
Okay.
if the only thing I'll say is if you see anyone joining us, any stragglers joining us, yeah, please do admit them. You're now the
Sounds
host.
good. All right. Can you guys see that okay?
Perfect.
Let me get everyone blown back up on the other side here so I can see the screen for everybody.
By the way, if you're on an interesting construction site and want to pan out the window of that office, if it has one, we can talk about where you are as well.
Yeah, and you'll see a picture in a minute. Unfortunately, I'm in a space where you're not going to see much outside of it. So a little bit about Turner in Chicago. Rick, do the students that are on understand just Turner as a company overall? Should I give a little bit of history of that as well?
There are some students who in another course are actually studying companies, including Turner, so know
Okay.
an awful lot about it. And there are others who might not be as familiar. So a broad overview would be useful.
Yeah, I'll give a 50-second or 30-second blip. So Turner was started in 1902 in New York. So we've been around for 120 years this year. We have approximately 45 offices across the U.S. And then we have global offices throughout the world. In 2021, construction volume, we're about $14 billion. This year will be closer to 16, hopefully, in a wide range of project types throughout the world. In Chicago locally, we're about 185 salaried employees. The market area in Chicago includes all of Illinois, southern Wisconsin, Northwest Indiana. We also have an Indianapolis office that covers most of Indiana. And we do have one project that's ongoing in Iowa. We do have a Des Moines, Iowa office that's open and up and coming, and we'll be transitioning our Iowa work, our one Iowa project to them. So Rick told you a little bit about me. So I have been with Turner since 1999. I graduated from the University of Virginia. That's where my family still lives in Virginia. I started with our office that's in Northern Virginia, DC area. I started out as a field engineer. So I was shooting line and grade, doing surveying, checking embeds, doing document control, all of those things when I was right out of school. And my career has progressed through the field path. So as an assistant superintendent, a superintendent, and then I was a senior superintendent, and then I moved into the project management role when I was in Chicago. I transferred here in 2007. My wife's from Chicago. So when she was pregnant with our oldest child, she wanted to be here. So we moved out here. And then I was a project manager, a project executive, and I've been in my current role as operations manager since the end of 2020. So in my role now, I'm responsible for all of our projects in Chicago. I'm also responsible for all of our staffing. I work closely with human resources, and I also get to enjoy doing things like this as well. So this is where I was going to just jump through some exciting projects, Rick, if this is okay. And it's kind of up to you, Rick, if people want to ask questions as we go along, or if we want to wait to the end for everyone to do the last half an hour.
Why don't we wait till the end for the questions, because they may be answered in some way by the presentation of a subsequent project.
Okay, great. So a lot of work going on in Chicago right now. So I tried to kind of give a snapshot of different market segments that we're covering. Many of you have probably heard about the Obama Presidential Center. Exciting project right near the lakefront in Jackson Park. There's a museum, a forum, a library, and an underground parking, along with all this great green space that's going to go with it. Here's an overview of where we were probably about a month ago. You're looking from the west, looking out to the east towards the lake. You can see all the different rigs that are there. They're, finishing up caissons, pressing sheeting for earth retention. If you can kind of see towards the right, it looks like little mounds sticking up from the snow. Those are all geothermal wells that have been installed on the site for that project. This job is started now and gets wrapped up in, I believe, in 2025 as part of it, and then open in 2026. You can see a couple pictures here that we included on the earth retention. So this is, cold form frame sheets that are interlocked together. So an interesting thing in this area of Hyde Park and this close to the lake, the water table is only about 5 to 6 feet below where you see this equipment sitting. So what you don't see in here is we've now installed a full dewatering system as part of this job, so that we can basically make a bathtub that then we take all the water out of, so we can excavate down for the foundations and for the basement. This is a cool job down in Champaign. It's the University of Illinois Chicago, the Ubben basketball complex. I think U of I got a number 2 seed yesterday in the brackets. But the top picture on the left, this was actually where the women's basketball team used to practice every day. And you can see the insulation that's on this outside wall. So that's about a 30-foot high temporary engineered wall to keep weather out. We're expanding that out so they have additional basketball courts. If you go to the opposite side of the existing facility, you see this same temporary wall, but there's drywall hung on the inside because the men's basketball team continues to practice directly adjacent to where they're expanding their facility. And then the bottom right, you can see we're also doing new PT spaces for them, locker rooms. You can see kind of how that construction is progressing. That project needs to be done in the fall for when they come back. This is a job that we've been on for quite some time at Argonne National Laboratories. This is going to be one of the fastest computers in the world when it's all up and done. Different than some data centers where it's just, there's a lot of heat and then we extract all the heat out of the space that's generated by the computers. This actually cools. You can see blue and red cables in this picture. It actually puts cold water across the computers to cool them. The picture on the right is really interesting. You can see that everything is stainless piping once you get to the building. So all of the water, everything is all stainless. So this is a project, Nexus Pharmaceuticals. This is in southern Wisconsin. So this is a pharmaceutical lab space. I couldn't show pictures of the insides of the lab space, but a lot of clean room areas, a lot of lab sterilization and lab equipment that comes from Germany and overseas that are part of this job. And so this job is complete from our end, and they're going through all of their testing and certifications so that hopefully sometime later this year, they can begin producing product. So this is a really interesting slide. So Advocate Healthcare is a major healthcare provider in Illinois and specifically in Chicago. If you look at here, back in 2015, this top picture, which points down to this area, was the Center for Advanced Care for Advocate that we completed in 2015. Since then, we've continued to be on campus. You'll see that May of 2021, we completed this building here. That's for counseling and pediatric development. In August of that same year, we completed this parking garage here. Unique though is on the first floor of this parking garage, there is patient spaces for physical therapy and occupational therapy. And now what we're starting is when we built this advanced care center, it was designed for an overbuild and an expansion. Well, this spring, we're starting this expansion and overbuild while this hospital remains occupied and in operation. So one unique thing that all of your engineers will appreciate is the original building was designed for an overbuild, but since it was originally designed, the seismic codes in Chicago have changed. So now there's additional stiffening and reinforcing that's required of the existing structure. So before we do the overbuild. So that's work that's in progress right now. We're also starting a new cancer center at the University of Chicago, third quarter of 2022. We're deep into pre-construction now on that job. Again, very, very interesting at the University of Chicago. We're building here, but directly here adjacent to us is also the emergency trauma area for the University of Chicago Hospital. So when we talk about the building being complex, we're also talking about the traffic flow, making sure that emergency vehicles can continue to get to the hospital at all times. So this is our one project that we have in Des Moines, Iowa. So this is a data center for a client to kind of get a scale of how big this one building is. You can see right in the middle here, kind of a crane. That's a 60-ton crane. So that tells you the size of this building overall. And each one of these kind of on the right side of the building, you see where they're setting the generators. Those are all massive generators that are set to support this data center. The project I'm on today, and Rick, you asked if I could pan out, this is a data center that's in Chicago. The top left picture is the office complex. I'm actually sitting in one of these offices over to the back corner that you see the light coming out of. So I can't show you much out of there. But this is unique that the slide I showed before is a greenfield site that's being developed. If I go back to that, this is being set up so that there's a total of 5 of these data centers. You have the one here in parallel, right, kind of to the left of that will be another one. And that's, we've done multiple of these in Iowa, where if you look at this in Chicago, this was a building that was built to house data centers. But each one of the data centers has a slightly different design and program. So when they built this originally, it was set up to have extensive raised floor. And that's not really what the new technology is. So we have major demo and reconstruction for utilities to get rid of the depressions for the raised floor. Also major structural work as it relates to where all the equipment will sit on the roof to supply the data center. So we're really in demo and reinforcing mode right now, with slabs starting to go back in later this month. Some upcoming work we have. So on the left-hand side of this, that's the Discovery Partners Institute. So that's actually a project that we do with the Capital Development Board, which is part of the state of Illinois. So we're in pre-construction on that. That's a life science building that the program is still somewhat being determined. And then on the right is a innovation center in Bronzeville, which is a near south side community to the university, to the city of Chicago. And you can see here, this is they're set up with 2 buildings and then with this massive, I'll call it bridge across the top. So this bar of structural steel that sits on top of these to support more space and lab program above. Some of you may have flown through O'Hare before. We do a lot of aviation work across the country. And the big picture here is kind of the master plan for O'Hare. They're doing additional parking and employee screening off to the left. Off to the right is where they're expanding the Terminal 5, which is the international terminal. But in the long term, they want to put 2 more satellite terminals and then a new global terminal here. But to make that happen, there's massive infrastructure work that has to happen on the airfield side. And that's what we're doing right now. The top right picture, you can see where we're putting in tunnels. We're doing additional relocations. This is kind of, if you look at this, the picture, the call out that says O'Hare Global Terminal and Concourse, at the top left corner of that is kind of where you see the work happening in this picture, because there's service roads, there's fiber that runs through where the future satellite terminals go, and all of that has to be relocated. So you're talking about projects that are 3 years plus in length just to relocate service roads, relocate the fiber optics tunnels, and other utility work so that then these satellite terminals can go in. And then in Chicago, much like New York, we have a very large special projects division. That's anything from interiors work, small data center, smaller out of the ground work. Here's a couple pictures. The one on the left is for a client that maybe some of you have heard of. There's Citadel is the name of the client. So we are working on putting in their office space now. And then on the right is for a law firm, a much different project here. This is really a carpet and paint job and redoing their telecom for them. And I know Rick had mentioned, an interest by this group, and I heard a little bit of the conversation at the end with Woody on sustainability. So here's a slide that shows, where we have a focus on our current sustainability efforts as a company for Turner. Stormwater pollution prevention, waste diversion, outside of just sending stuff to facilities where the recycling can happen there. What can we do on the construction side? Carbon reduction, on the site. Also, as it relates to embodied carbon for the materials that are going into our buildings. Mass timber is a big focus now. Can we get to a net zero or even a net positive at the end of the day? And a few things that we're doing here, and as a company with Turner to help this happen. Kind of going from the bottom up with these bullets, we've made a commitment to reduce our carbon footprint significantly by 2030. And so how do we do that? We've started putting in some policies, no idling on our project sites. We've always had a no smoking policy. LED lights, our temporary construction lights are a huge user of electricity and power. LED greatly reduces that. The Turner Green Zone, that's something we do locally in our offices, on our projects. What are we doing on our projects to recycle, to have plants, to reduce energy use? And one thing that's not listed here that everybody says they want to reduce our carbon emissions, but people don't really know what our carbon footprint is right now. So we have a intensive metering program that we've put into place over the last 5 years. We continue to use it on new projects. So we're actually metering the temporary electricity, the water, the gas usage to have a better understanding of actually what our carbon footprint is right now. So when we say we're going to reduce it, we can actually show that numerically. And so, Rick, that was really a crash course in 30 minutes of an overview of some projects. Not too deep, kind of an inch deep and a mile wide, but I thought that would be a good basis to set up any questions from the people that are on the call.
Well, that was perfect. That was exactly what I was hoping for. The great variety typologically and even geographically within the region gives a sense of both the versatility and I guess, what would I call it? Diversification,
Yeah.
not concentrating only on the thing that is hottest at the moment, but looking at the pipeline and projects for institutional clients, including the University of Chicago, that are repeat work, and they keep coming back. So,
Yeah, and Rick, I will say, like, the University of Chicago is my client, right? As I've come up through the industry in Chicago, I've done a lot of projects there. Most recently, we finished the Rubenstein Forum. If anybody Googles that, it's an amazing building. Not only architecturally, but you don't get to see the pictures of structurally and MEP wise what went into that. But the Dillis Scofidio Renfro was the architect for that. And I actually came out to Columbia and visited one of their projects there that was in construction when we were in pre-construction for the Rubenstein Forum.
Liz and Rick are both good friends, and they've done some interesting work at the medical school for Columbia as well recently. That's similar in its geometry and its sense of openness, connection. They do great work. Actually, that was going to be one of my first questions, and I'm sure the students are going to have lots and lots. But let me jump in with the first one, because it's about a project that similarly almost connects Columbia and University of Chicago, which is the Obama Presidential Center, the library, which could have been at Columbia, but for decision of the board that Chicago and the tie-in to the University of Chicago, which, if I recall, not only from the architectural selection and the site selection issues, but with the University of Chicago as a partner, and with a lot of the history and politics and outreach of the university in the South Side. The site that you mentioned in Jackson Park became, if not inevitable, at least very logical. So I've read up a little bit about that project over the years, not just the architectural selection of a New York firm, Todd Williams Village, and in collaboration with the Chicago firm. But the geothermal on the technical side, phenomenal. I'd love to hear more about that. A two-part, three-part question. Operationally, Turner is in the lead on the construction, but because of I'll call it the politics of it, but also the policies attended to it, you're collaborating with a bunch of minority-owned firms, Powers and Sons, Brown and Monin, Safeway, UJA, MAA. I'd like to know a little bit more about how those collaborations work in Chicago. We know how they work in New York, but they're maybe a little bit different. And I don't know. I also read that there had been at one point a controversy about taking the parkland, even though the park is immense, 550 acres. The site is a little less than 20 acres, if I recall. Did that disappear with all the other community benefits and agreements, including into the Lightfoot administration? So a little bit more detail on that project, because you started with it, and it's it's going to be a game changer for that neighborhood.
So I guess starting off first with the architecture part of it. So TWBTA, we have a history with in Chicago, and at the University of Chicago, we did the David Logan Arts Center with them, which is a performing arts building that has amazing sound qualities on the inside. Everything from student practice space to large performance auditoriums. While on the outside, it's unique with like large format masonry units, limestone units, and looking out to the city. So we have a familiarity with that firm. So with the formation of our team, because it's not just Turner doing the Obama Presidential Center, it's the team is called the Lakeside Alliance, and Rick named our partners in that group. Rick, that's something that is becoming commonplace here in Chicago, and especially for Turner, is more joint ventures with underutilized businesses, whether they be small businesses, minority businesses, or women-owned businesses. And it really fits with what the company and Peter's message is and where we're trying to go to. And when I say Peter, Peter Davern, who's our president, sitting in New York, is that one, how can we help these diverse businesses or small businesses grow? How can we team with them? There is sometimes a political part of it, Rick. This was definitely going to need to have minority partners on the job, but we do that on projects that don't even require it. Actually, as part of the pursuit we did last week, our business development manager and I went back and did some research. And over the last 2 years out of the Chicago business unit, we've pursued some won, some lost, still pending, almost $4 billion in work where we are in some type of JV arrangement with minority and women business owned companies. So almost a little bit over $1 out of every $3 that we pursue here in Chicago is in that type of arrangement. So a little bit more about the Obama project overall. So yes, controversy with the parks, Rick. Even though it's a smaller part, I don't know all of the politics, to be honest. But that land was sold back to the foundation, to the Obama Presidential Foundation, from the parks and from the city. But there were certain rules in place about building on parkland overall, whether it's building the Obama Presidential Center or building a shack. The same rules still apply to it. So there was a lot of legal challenges over a multi-year period. Some of it ended up in federal courts as well, from the Friends of the Parks is what it was called. And really, that issue was separate from many of the community issues. They were somewhat intertwined, but it was really two different groups with two different reasonings going towards it. I will say at the end of the day, the project's moving forward in Jackson Park. From a construction management standpoint, really we were just supporting the foundation through that. But the thing that's really difficult and for the students here to realize is that as you're supporting your client through this multi-year process, we're constantly analyzing the costs. We're constantly analyzing the schedule, right? From my perspective, constantly managing staff with our partners on there about, are people still going to be available? Are we still holding on to staff to go to this job when there's other opportunities becoming available? Yeah. And so while you're really just supporting the client, there's a lot of work to be done along the way. On the other side, with the community organizations, I would say that's where we take a more active role. This Obama Presidential Center is a little bit unique because they have a lot of entities with the foundation, with their former president living in Hyde Park. So geographically, his house is a couple miles from where the site is probably, or his former residence. But we're very engaged in the Hyde Park community from all of our other work. And so weighing into, community hiring, diverse workforce, diverse companies outside of our own partnership is huge on that job. There were community benefits agreements that were being asked for, and really that was outside of us because a lot of that had to do with concerns on rent control, gentrification of the neighborhood. And so while, again, we continue to support the foundation, we were really focused on more identifying opportunities for local minority companies, as well as ensuring that the workforce is representative of the community.
Great answer. I didn't mean to bring, over much politics into it, but, what you're reading about, 4-year time delay in getting started, that has to have impact on not just the mobilization, but on the budgeting and scheduling, as you were saying. So thank you for bringing it into that context as well.
And escalation, and I don't know how in depth the different level of students see, hear about cost escalation, but the last year, 2 years, and even the last 6 months, it's incredible. How we, Turner as a company does a very good job of being part of the, informing the market on where we are with cost through our Turner cost indices that go out around the country into many of our partners, and it's almost unpredictable right now, Rick. It's crazy what's going on.
Is that in major? Steel and concrete we've been hearing about for a long time, but is it in everything?
It's in everything. For instance, so any petroleum products. So prior to the conflict that's happening in Europe now, what was that in the winter of 2019 into 20 when the major freeze hit Texas? I don't know if anybody remembers that. And, they were in a deep freeze. They, lost power everywhere, right? So much of the petroleum products are produced from there. So a lot of stuff that goes into roofing insulation or PVC piping, huge shortages in that. And so lead times were driven way out for those. Now just the supply chain overall is so disrupted due to COVID, and now it just continues to occur. Everything from us having light fixtures coming from Canada that when things shut down during COVID that we couldn't even find, right? In Canada, they just shut down whole businesses and you couldn't even get anyone to answer the phone, to the major shipping delays from overseas, a lack of containers, delays at the ports, lack of truck drivers in the States. It's incredible. Now you get into, Ukraine is, I think it's the biggest stockpile of iron ore in the world, I believe is what I heard the other day. Just the impacts that's going to have across the board, and aluminum. There's a big part of aluminum that comes from Russia. So those impacts are going to continue to happen.
I don't envy you the logistics. I see Lynn Shee, you have your hand up. You have a question for Brad?
Yes. Hi, Brad. Thank you for introducing so many amazing projects. And since we are learning about project management in a practicum program provided by CBIPS and collaborated with ACAL New York, and we are trying to analyze a set of data of over 100 projects. And I'm curious about that. As an operations manager and also a former project manager, right? In your opinion, which key performance index would you care most about when evaluating the performance of a project or a whole company?
So I think as you look at the KPIs for a project versus a company, they're similar, but maybe slightly different. And I think that, you're going to first look at, it's at the end of the day, we're a business, right? So we have to make money. So whichever way you're looking at the KPI, it's, how much earnings are we making? And we look at that in a lot of different ways. A lot of it is the earnings to volume ratio, Lynn. So you can make a lot of money, but what's the ratio of that to the size of the project or the size of the business unit at the time? Because that's an important ratio. At Turner, I would say it's the money part, safety. Something that you may not hear about, but a key performance indicator for us is our safety performance, whether that's in our recordable rates or our EMRs. And that's critical for a few reasons. One, the safety of our workers and our job sites and having the right environment for that is huge. But then also the safety record influences so many other things with our insurance rates, our workers wanting to come to our sites to work, and like the insurance rates are a huge driver for cost and construction projects. And then I would look at schedule. and are we meeting the schedule? What's our production per man? Those are key performance indicators as well. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks.
And there's others. Lynn, did you say that you guys are doing stuff with AECOM? Is that what I heard?
Yeah. We have a practicum program. Yeah.
Okay.
Provided by CBIPS and AECOM. So.
Okay. And as you AECOM's a massive company. Rick will laugh, but I think over the last 10 years, like they've bought half the construction world, right? Like I don't even know how many companies now are part of AECOM, but a lot of people don't know that in 1999, from 1902 to 1999, Turner was a public company. In 1999, we were bought by a company called Hochtief. So we're actually a subsidiary of Hochtief out of Germany. So a lot of the same things that AECOM may talk about for key performance indicators are the same for us, right? We have Turner KPIs, we have business unit KPIs, project KPIs, and then Hochtief has its own set of KPIs as well, with us delivering earnings back to them on it used to be a quarterly basis. Now I feel like it's a daily basis sometimes. So.
Rajutha, I see you have your hand up.
Hi, that was a great presentation. I'm sorry I'll not be able to turn on my camera since I'm traveling, but I do have one question for you, and that is about as an operations manager, you must be seeing that a lot of your work or tasks are moving towards data and how technology can be integrated into your job. Do you think that there is any specific activity or task that you have to do regularly that can be automated or made better through data analysis, something that can make your job easier? So what do you think is a challenge you face that can be made better throughout the years?
So, I mean, technology has been awesome in improving our business and how we do work. I would actually say if you talk about a challenge of technology, I think one of our biggest challenges is just the amount of technology and how quickly the technology changes. And I'm mainly referring to not building technology, but to how we manage our operations and what we do on a day-to-day basis. And the reason why I say that is a challenge is there's something new every day that comes out, a new way to do something, a new software that can help us with scheduling or with something else. And it's a challenge because sometimes people don't become comfortable with one way of doing things because there's always a new way. And so it's a balance of finding that. So the automation has helped us tremendously in a lot of ways, whether it's from things like QR coding, from just program management software overall. How can we all be putting data in one place? Whether it's in a document control or quality control, schedule input. It's been huge. We use one big thing we're trying to do now is there's so much data, is that how can we get it into one place, and trying to eliminate our staff having to go get data from multiple places and bring it back into a single format for high level summaries. And so we use a lot of Project Pulse now and some other software to try to grab data from all these different places and bring it back into one. And me as the operations manager, I want to see more trends, more high level type of items. Like if we're looking at a project level, I want to be able to see, how are we trending with change orders? I don't necessarily want to talk about individual change orders, but is there a certain percentage that we have into the client? Are they continuing to move through the process? Where are we at with documents and RFIs and submittals? And so all of those things are very helpful when there's something we can use to pull the data out from these different softwares and bring it to one place. The other thing that evolves way over my head, but I see the benefits of it every day, is how we do modeling. Like it's incredible, and we've gotten much better at taking all of that great information and what our modelers do and bringing it down to even where the individual tradesmen are able to use that on a daily basis for their installation and coordination and production monitoring as well.
Right. Thank you. That was really helpful. So with AECOM, we are building a dashboard for company operations and project managers. So understanding what you would like to see as an operations manager was really helpful. So thank you.
No, you're yeah, I didn't use the word dashboard, but you're exactly right. I mean, just like everybody, my day is packed full, and I want to be able to see stuff on one sheet of paper and see the four things I want to see that gives me a high level where it is, so I can move on to the next topic. So
right. Makes sense. Thank you.
Lynn, you have another question, I think.
Yes. May I ask a non-technical question? Since I'm very impressed with your experience that you have worked at Turner for over 20 years, and I wonder what support you to stay with Turner for such a long time. Would you like to share your stories with us?
yeah. So Rick, I may be freezing up a little bit. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, no problem. Lips aren't coordinated with the sound, but
I'm gonna turn off my, just because maybe that'll help the connection on my end. All right, so I helps if there's a connection issue from my side. So, to be honest, Turner has always given me a challenge, Lynn. I've always had the opportunity to grow and expand. And it's really like, I go back to, my wife, when I was a young superintendent with Turner, some of my best friends and some of her best friends are still people that we worked with then. Turner is this isn't just a sales pitch for Turner. It's I think hopefully it's answering your question, Lynn, that there's a leader. Over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of cultural changes in the world, or a lot of cultural items that have come to the forefront, and the construction industry is not always one that's leading the way. And I think under his direction, and with all the great people in our company, we've been continuing to lead the way, not just in the construction field, but as it relates to diversity, equity, inclusion, responding to what's going on around the world. And that makes me feel like this is a place I want to be and I want to work, because it's more than just a construction company. I'll give a quick example that, we had a project 2 years ago where they found a swastika drawn in a portable toilet on the job. The job had over 400 workers on it. That job was shut down for almost 2 days until every single person on that job went through training on what that symbol meant, what happened during the Holocaust. And we had that on several, not that same incident, but similar things across the country where we shut down jobs to make sure people were educated and understood that, that type of stuff doesn't happen in our house, meaning, jobs that are under our control. And that, when you talk about why I want to be with Turner, there's not many companies in the world that would take that kind of stance and do those type of things. And that's well beyond anything that has to do with construction.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to listen to your story and your thoughts and determination in the career goals. It will be very helpful for us. Yeah, since we are very new and maybe some of us haven't worked in the real world company, so it will be very helpful for us. Thank you.
I'd like to follow up with that question in a slightly different vein. The vision statement on the Turner website, not just for the Chicago office, but for the company as a whole, is to be the highest value provider of global construction services and technical expertise. And stressing the word global, you mentioned, the numbers of offices around the country and around the world. The relation to Haktiv, I imagine, brings global financial stability, different economics to the mix, I'm sure. Is there much technical interchange? Is it, if so, in both directions? The one thing I remember reading in looking at a student analysis, students in this group, in other classes, some degree of looking at companies that compete with Turner, that are parallel to Turner in different markets, perhaps. And one student looking at Turner said that it seemed to them that there was much more of a concentration on domestic work since the purchase, and a little bit less outpouring of resources, a little bit less emphasis on the work overseas. I don't know, maybe it's not a fair question, but just curious about, when you talk about AECOM purchasing so many companies, how does the globalization of Turner work in that real world, which might be of some moment to, all the students in our program who are from all over the world, as you could see.
Yeah, so I think, Rick, I lost you for part of it, but I think I got most of it though. Can you, okay?
Yeah, please, but just a question about globalization in the industry.
Yeah. So the sharing of resources throughout the globe is huge. And I think that, we have Turner International, which acts as kind of its own business unit around the world. But I think as you look at the sharing of resources, we have Turner Technology Services, which is overseas, which does a huge some of our modeling and assisting with projects and utilizing a group that has a specialty there is huge. Our business development manager, Rick, that's here in Chicago now, he was originally out in New York, but then I think Matt spent about 10 years in Malaysia working there. So some of the knowledge and experiences from an operation standpoint that he brings back are huge. The construction executive that's running the Obama Presidential Center, Junisa Brima for Turner, he spent 2 years overseas in Malaysia working before he came back here. So I think there's a sharing of resources. The global economy is so connected now, and we talked about the deliveries and the supply chain, and the fact that we have resources in Europe that when we have a stone guy in Italy, right, that goes around and checks on where our stone is for all our projects around the country, because it could be weeks delayed if they decide not to cut a slab for us when they say they're going to, or there's a backup at the shipping container yard. So I think the global supply chain, the global economy is so connected that having a resource like Haktiv, Turner International,
Brad, we've lost you. I don't know.
I think we have lost him.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good question. Actually, it was interesting to find out how anyway Turner works with ACS Group out of Spain, because ACS have a majority stake in Haktiv. That would be kind of interesting, but I think we have lost him.
Well, his name is still on the roster, and let's hold out for a little bit longer. But I don't know. I've reclaimed host.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He dropped out. I don't see him anymore there.
Well, let's.
We're almost close to the end. Yes.
Yeah, we were going to be winding down in a few minutes anyway. It's 11:57 here. I want to thank you all for signing in. I know that some of you are traveling already, and you know, if you're calling in from afar and the time difference is significant, thank you especially. Thanks for those who asked questions. Lynn, thank you. Or Jutha, thank you, Jenny. This is how I think we'll be doing the next 4 days. I encourage you all to continue to participate. I'm not going to say it's obligatory, but I think it does add value. And whether it's someone who's looking, you know, at the city as if from an airplane over the model. Great. Brad, are you there? No, I thought I heard your voice. Or someone, you know, like Brad, who is deeply involved in the details of projects and in the financial aspects, obviously, as well. That'll be our program for the next 4 days. I hope, you know, by combining these different and disparate visions, we'll get the kind of overview from afar that we would have if we were there. Of course, it's never going to be the same as being there. But for those who don't know Chicago, and I dare say, you know, that's except for Professor Peñamora, maybe all of us, I've been there half a dozen times in my life, but never with the same kind of depth of understanding that I have of other cities where I've lived or worked. It's an amazing city, you know, for decades, for century, it was called the second city of the US. Maybe it still has that kind of aura and feeling after New York. Before 1898, the third largest city after Chicago was Brooklyn, of all places. And with the merger and consolidation of Manhattan and Brooklyn, New York City leapfrogged ahead of Chicago, and now LA has as well. But Chicago has always been the lead in what I think both Woody and Brad described, which is the linkage of public benefit and private initiative, private commerce. The city of broad shoulders, but also of big corporations and of movement, of infrastructure, of transportation infrastructure. So, you know, we'll be hearing more about that as the week progresses. And I think this was a good kickoff, you know, is what I expected, and I think what we got. So I'm sorry we couldn't thank Brad more publicly if he's not on the call, but I'll do so by an email momentarily. And we'll see you all again tomorrow.
See you again. Thank you for joining. Thank you,
Thank you,
Rick.
professors.
Thank you. See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, sir.